700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
Investigators in the House impeachment inquiry expect to hear from two more government witnesses today. They are two Ukraine experts at the State Department. Meanwhile, the House is considering rules for public hearings and a potential impeachment vote against President Trump. 3 people were shot to death late last night at a home in Long Beach, California. 9 others injured. It's unclear at this moment if anybody was taken into custody. The Nationals defeated the Astros 7-2 last night in Game 6 of the World Series. Now it's on to a winner-take-all Game 7. It's the first World Series in which the visiting team won the first 6 games. Nats third baseman Anthony Rendon talking about that.
We're going to continue to try to ride this wave as long as possible. Maybe they enjoy our park and maybe we enjoy their park. So we're not going to ask questions. We're just going to try to go out there and just have some fun.
The Federal Reserve's expected to cut interest rates again today for the 3rd time this year, but stock futures remain generally flat or even down slightly ahead of the opening bell on Wall Street. I'm Michael Toscano.
Why all the top-tier experts? Because business is not a magic trick.
Give us a sense of the economic backdrop.
Bloomberg Markets.
Which financial records are these?
Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. It is 6:47 on Wall Street, and futures this morning are little change. Shares of General Electric are jumping up 5.8%. Let's go to the first word breaking news desk for today's morning call. Here's Bill Maloney. Bill, good morning.
And good morning, Karen. That's right. U.S. futures are quiet right now with Dow futures and S&P futures unchanged. NASDAQ futures are higher by 3. The U.S. 10-year yield at 1.83%. Gold is up 4, while European markets are trading lower, led by 1% losses in Spain. Note that Airbus cut its full-year delivery and cash flow forecast. Back in the U.S. on the economic front at 8:15, ADP employment change. At 8:30, GDP, personal consumption, and core PCE. And at 2 o'clock, the FOMC rate decision. After the bell last night, Amgen boosted its full-year forecast. And regarding some of the earnings this morning, you mentioned GE. The company boosted fiscal year industrial free cash flow views, and toy maker Mattel is up 18% in the pre-market after its earnings. In deal news, Annex are to be acquired for $81 a share in cash. And in other news, J&J is up 3% in the pre-market, disputing the FDA test on asbestos. Wrapping things up, Biogen was raised to outperform at Bernstein, Corning cut to hold at Deutsche Bank, and Xerox was cut to underweight over at JP Morgan. Live from the first breaking news desk, I'm Bill Maloney. Karen?
All right, Bill, thank you. And to hear live breaking news over your Bloomberg, type squawk on your terminal, SQUAWK. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Michael Barr with more on what's going on around the world. Michael.
Karen, investigators in the House impeachment inquiry expect to hear from 2 more government witnesses behind closed doors. Meanwhile, it got a bit feisty yesterday between Democrats and Republicans while interviewing Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman in the impeachment investigation. Democrats accused the GOP of trying to out the anonymous whistleblower who sparked the impeachment inquiry. Wildfires continue to rage across California as firefighters battle not only the flames, but high winds and in some cases rough terrain. In the NHL, the Rangers won, the Bruins were winners, the Capitals beat the Maple Leafs in overtime. Finally, from daybreak on the Bloomberg, the Washington Nationals beat the Houston Astros 7-2 to tie up the World Series at 3 games apiece. And as Peter Marshall used to say, causing a rubber game of the match. Winner take all tonight. Anthony Rendon broke out of a slump, and Steven Strasburg almost pitched a complete game. Nathan, it will be Max Scherzer versus Zach Greinke on the mound for all the marbles.
Now, Amy Morris in Washington doesn't want us to talk about this at all.
Oh, yeah, I get it.
So,
hey,
best of luck.
Hey, thank goodness that the Trey Turner controversy did not cause an impact in the game. So.
Yeah. Well, speaking of controversies, Max Scherzer was a scratch in Game 5. Now he's starting Game 7 tonight.
Right.
But we're not saying anything.
Okay.
We're not saying anything.
Go ahead. Global news, 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Nathan.
I think we're safe.
Okay.
Thank you, Michael. We are live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studios. We're at 6:50 on Wall Street. Time to check what else is going on in D.C. The top stories include The Fed expecting to cut rates for a third time at its policy meeting this afternoon. At least that's what the markets are expecting. Second day of hearings over the 737 MAX for Boeing CEO Dennis Muhlenberg, this time before a House committee, and the House voting overwhelmingly to sanction Turkey despite the U.S. brokered ceasefire in northern Syria. Also making news, the impeachment inquiry could get its first public airing today in a Senate confirmation hearing. For more on this, we're joined by Bloomberg Washington reporter Kathleen Hunter. And we're speaking about the confirmation of President Trump's pick for ambassador to Russia. And he's actually become something of a figure in the questions surrounding the president's phone call with Ukraine, Kate.
Absolutely. So this is John Sullivan, and in his current role as Deputy Secretary of State, he's the one that broke the news to then U.S. Ambassador to the Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch, that she was being recalled because Trump had lost confidence in her. And so we know that she was a witness who testified earlier about a concerted campaign against her, to bring her back from Russia. And so I think that this places Sullivan right kind of in the center of all of these events at a critical time. And so certainly senators, Democratic senators on the committee, even though this isn't part of the impeachment process, will certainly want to know about what he knew and want to press him about that and what he, said to Yovanovitch and others.
So could this be something of a focal point for some of the testimony that has been aired in private on Capitol Hill to come out in this hearing?
Absolutely. This has been kind of a big, in a way, it's kind of poor timing for the Trump administration because this has been Republicans' chief argument against the impeachment inquiry in the House is that it's being conducted behind closed doors. And so here we are in the Senate, which eventually we know would, if the House does impeach, which it looks like they're moving in that direction, the Senate is the one that would conduct the trial. The Senate's having this hearings, which ostensibly is supposed to be on Sullivan's qualifications for the post. But I think we'll turn more on questions about impeachment and will be the first opportunity to really hear in a public forum from one of the key witnesses in this matter, who likely will also be called to testify in the House as well.
We should talk a little bit about what happened behind closed doors, the latest in the impeachment inquiry. It got a little testy during Lieutenant Colonel Vindman's testimony.
It did certainly, and there were at least in the public sort of Twitter realm and in their public comments, there were some Republicans who questioned Vindman's motivations and kind of called his character into question, which got a stern rebuke from a lot of Democrats. But I think essentially here, what he told the committee, as we understand it, is that he was privy to this July 25th phone call and that he raised concerns about it to the National Security Council, and that this was not the only instance in which Trump's conduct was concerning to him. Also, there's reports that he also said that he had tried to change, he saw glaring omissions in the so-called transcript that the White House released summarizing the call, and that he, had tried to correct some of those omissions, as he characterized them, to reflect more accurately his recollection of the call, and that did not happen. And so I think that also punches a hole into the White House's argument that the transcript exonerates Trump, because if the transcript isn't complete or there's some questions about the completeness of the transcript, then that becomes a harder thing for the White House to rely upon.
Now, while President Trump has been bogged down by the impeachment inquiry and would focus on that, it's really given a chance for Vice President Mike Pence to come to the fore in really public ways.
It has, and really, as bad a month as October has been for Trump, it's been, a pretty good month, perhaps his best month as vice president for Mike Pence. And so, he was able to, give a pretty major policy speech on China, which, rebuffing Beijing for their human rights record while not, throwing off kilter the trade talks that are ongoing between the U.S. and China. And then he also, went to Ankara and helped broker a deal with Turkish authorities that helped diffuse some of the Republican opposition to Trump over the green light that he gave to Turkish President Erdogan for his incursion in northern Syria. And so I think that on those two foreign policy fronts, Pence had some pretty major successes this month, which I think, in the context, if you layer that over the context of impeachment, I think raises some questions in people's minds about whether, even if it's not deliberate, whether, Pence might be looking like a more appealing option to Republicans.
Less than a minute left here, but want to turn to the 2020 race because a lot of policy analysts on Wall Street have been betting on re-election chances for President Trump and raising concerns about Elizabeth Warren if she becomes president and her impact on markets. What's the track record for Wall Street when it comes to predicting the impact of the president on the markets?
In short, the track record is not very good. And I think that, the people that are predicting that, a Warren presidency would have, in some cases, cataclysmic effects on the markets, I think are some of the same people or some of the same groups of people, at least, who were predicting that, Trump's volatile personality would have a negative effect on the markets. And we didn't see that materialize. In fact, we saw pretty soaring stock markets for the first year and a half of Trump's administration.
Bloomberg Washington reporter Kathleen Hunter, thank you as always. It's 6:56 on Wall Street.
The following commentary is from Bloomberg Opinion.
Wealth tax would make the U.S. economy less dynamic. I'm Carl Smith, a columnist for Bloomberg Opinion. The wealth tax has been criticized as unfeasible, but Emmanuel Saez and Gabriel Zuckman, two economists from Berkeley, who have advised both the Warren and Sanders campaign on creating a wealth tax, make a compelling argument that it could be effectively implemented in the United States. The more fundamental problem is that it would undermine the dynamism that is central to the U.S. economy. The key advantage, they argue, of the wealth tax over simply increasing the estate tax is that the wealth tax would democratize the economy by divesting billionaires of control in the companies they found. However, the ability of founders to implement their often idiosyncratic vision is one of the key advantages of American capitalism. Entrepreneurs come from all around the world to the U.S. not just to make money, but to build a company of their dreams. I'm Carl Smith. For more opinion, please go to Bloomberg.com/opinion or OPIN-GO on the Bloomberg terminal.
This has been Bloomberg Opinion.
And Bloomberg Opinion editorials can be heard every weekday at this time, and terminal customers can read more at OPIN-GO. And we continue to watch shares of General Electric up 5.7% this morning. It raised its 2019 cash flow forecast for the second consecutive quarter, giving Chief Executive Larry Culp's turnaround effort a much-needed boost. GE said the manufacturing business will generate as much as $2 billion in free cash this year. And we're also watching some headlines from Molson Coors. It's announcing a revitalization plan. It says it sees cutting 400 to 500 jobs as a result. Futures this morning are little changed ahead of a Federal Reserve interest rate decision. The euro is at 1.1123 against the dollar, and Bloomberg surveillance with Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrell is straight ahead. For Nathan Hager, I'm Karen Moscow, and this is Bloomberg.
Influential.
It's another Wednesday morning. Yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and enjoy stunning white sand and crystal blue sea. Fly from London Gatwick to the Maldives with British Airways from £300 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
I tell you what used to be fair, lunch. Used to walk past pubs and just see people laughing and merriment. What happened to those cheery days? I tell you what happened to them. It's been replaced by a pint glass sitting by a computer full of condiments, plastic cutlery, and a pair of chopsticks you use for fishing the noodles out your keyboard. It's just not fair.
At TalkTalk, fairness is important. That's why, unlike some other providers, we offer fixed price plans on our fibre broadband for the entire length of your contract. Search TalkTalk Fibre. Fairer broadband for everyone.
When it comes to music, I've heard it all. Pink Floyd, Sean Paul, Slipknot. But in the Which Test Lab, hearing isn't enough. When we test headphones, we really listen. Not just to the music, but to the stuff that gets in the way. The traffic, the chatter, all that. Mind the gap. We simulate the loudest commute to find you the headphones that cancel out the noise. So you know we're only recommending the best.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
From the financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. is Bloomberg Surveillance Economics.
I think the U.S. is going in for a couple of years of very, very strong growth.
The deficit by early in the next decade will start to become a real problem for the markets.
Finance.
The consumer is really strong right now.
We don't realize how good times are now.
Investment.
The biggest problem that people have in investing in stocks is that they get out of the market.
It's not supposed to be easy. Anyone who finds it easy is stupid.
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrow on Bloomberg Radio.
From New York City, for our audience worldwide, good morning, good morning. This is Bloomberg Surveillance. Coming up on the program, it's Fed Decision Day. Economists expecting a third straight rate cut. Prime Minister Boris Johnson getting his election, hoping a December vote provides a path forward. And looking ahead to a big day for tech, Apple and Facebook reporting results after the closing bell. From the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio, hello Wednesday. Here is your Wednesday morning price action. Muted price action once again. Futures absolutely unchanged on the S&P 500. In the bond market, pretty muted price action as well. Yields come in a single basis point on a 10-year. Your yield 1.826%. On a 2-year note, unchanged at 164. In foreign exchange, the dollar showing just a little bit of weakness against the bulk of G10 on the session. The euro firmer by 0.1%. Pound sterling stronger by 0.25%. Cable inches just a little bit higher. 2 p.m. Eastern, that's your main event. The Federal Reserve decides. Chairman Powell delivers a news conference shortly thereafter. Joining Tom and I in the studio, I'm pleased to say, here in New York, Tony Crescenzi, PIMCO market strategist and portfolio manager. Good morning to you, Tony.
Morning, John. Thanks for having me here.
Will they or won't they cut interest rates in a couple of hours' time?
Yes, we think it's highly probable. The Federal Reserve did nothing to dissuade the markets from thinking there'll be a move. And we know from our conversations that we have regularly with Ben Bernanke that when the market has a very high probability of a certain action, that the Federal Reserve need follow through with it in what could be called the Hall of Mirrors effect, where the market's looking at the Fed and the Fed's looking back at the markets, and they have to mirror what the markets are doing. So the probability of what the markets have in for a hike is 90%. That's too high for the Fed to say no today.
What's a hawkish cut?
A mistake in this climate. Hawkish cut would be where the Fed cuts and then it does something like it's done in the past, where it looks back and says, well, with these 3 cuts now we think things will be fine. So if they look back at the cuts and speak to what they've done, and that would be a hawkish cut.
Cut to the day. Chairman Powell is going to be in the crucible of the press conference. Let's be honest, a third of the questions make sense. The rest are
especially from Michael McKee.
What's the question you want to ask so he can define this new phrase, hawkish cut? They were good.
Are you going after the press today?
I'm going after the press today. Hawkish cut opened for Jethro Tull about 22 years ago. They were great. Hawkish cut. How do you phrase that to the chairman in a constructive way?
One can. Michael McKee will be one of the best.
Yes, he will.
Bloomberg's Michael McKee will ask the question. But you would expect that Powell will be evasive on the idea that the Federal Reserve is finished and that this potentially is simply a mid-cycle insurance-like adjustment. He will do everything he can to leave his options open. And so those in the room asking him questions should try to push and say, do you really mean to tell us that you are open to another cut in December on the 11th when you meet again? Or are you just trying to have us think there'll be more cuts? Most likely, to be straight, the Fed in this optionality, in the statement, it'll probably say something to the effect of what it said last time in its policy meeting, that it'll continue to monitor the implications of incoming data and act as appropriate. That still could mean doing nothing. And so it's okay to say we are open to another cut and not actually follow through with it. And markets, importantly, are only priced for 30 basis points more in cuts between now and the end of next year.
So you're saying there's not that much tension between the market
30 basis
and
points.
Fed forecast right now?
So Powell's been put in a very good position by the rise in market interest rates recently and the re-steepening of the yield curve.
I want to, John, 3 months 10s. I did a very careful study of it today, and we are now out where the question, as I said to Mr. Crescenzi earlier, have we broken the curve flattening cycle?
You've got to be really careful, though, now, because the Fed is buying T-bills. And, Tony, I just wonder if we can't take signal from when the curve was inverting, whether we can take any signal now the curve is steepening from a 3-month T-bill at the longer end.
To an extent, but the purchases haven't happened in any meaningful size yet, and when the problems will become acute more in January or so, when the amount of bills available to be bought will be low, and so when the Fed is out there buying, yes, it will have an impact on the curve. So a 3-month T-bill, 1-month T-bill, especially a 2-month, can't possibly be impacted by future Fed purchases because these T-bills will have matured. And so we would say that the steepening relates more to confidence in the Fed, confidence in democracy and capitalism, to the extent that this faith that companies, people will wake up each and every day and try to make a better living for themselves and produce a better economic outcome. How? With policy uncertainty down a little, and I emphasize a little, on Brexit and China.
Well, let's talk about that. Since the end of August, the beginning of September, when the 10-year Treasury yield bottomed out for 2019, risks have receded. So repricing markets makes sense. Now, whether risks have diminished to the degree that you think that everything is behind us, that the worst is behind us, and that things are going to gradually get better from here on out, I guess it's a very different judgment call. Where do you come down on that, Tony, at the moment?
As you know, John, in your home country, in the UK, even if Brexit, if the election goes as Boris Johnson wants on December 12th, Frank Sinatra's birthday, by the way.
Big day, December 12th.
Good morning to Staten Island.
I had to say that as an Italian. If it goes as expected and it goes well, and Brexit, the UK does leave the European Union, as you know, there's a transition period. And there'll be a lot of squabbles about that and a lot of uncertainties that could cause businesses to say, well, I'm not so sure about the future, because trade agreements between the UK and the rest of Europe will have to be rewritten. A lot of things will have to be rewritten, and no one will know what the writing will be. And so there will be uncertainties there, and also with China, because it is an election year in the United States, and there will be, it is a bipartisan issue, and so there will be tensions remaining through the election.
And in the meantime, Tony, people are starting to load up on risk just a little bit incrementally once again. High yield spreads, the tightest of the year, in and around those kind of levels now, 350 basis points. Good friend of yours, Mr. Iverson, in the FT this week, saying we don't like corporate credit risk. Why doesn't PIMCO like corporate credit risk right now?
Dan Iverson, our group CIO, has identified, and as we all have, that the corporate credit markets, the risk is part of the fixed income market. It has to do with something that happened in that's endemic to the markets in general, that happened in the money market, that the intermediaries, those who get between the buyer and the seller, aren't playing the traditional role. And in other words, you saw in the money market when interest rates on the short-term part of the bond market moved up toward 10%. That was because intermediaries decided, well, we're not going to participate in the way we used to. This could happen in the corporate bond market at a time when there's a large amount of risk transfer. In other words, when investors go to sell corporate bonds someday when they have a reason to do so, and typically this is a recession risk, who is it that will be taking these hot potatoes? Each primary dealer, those who do a lot of this intermediation, will say, I don't want it, you have it, you take it.
You think there's real liquidity risk in the corporate credit market in the United States?
There's the problems in the money market are endemic to the financial markets in general, because intermediaries are, due to regulatory changes, are unwilling to house inventory. Think of it this way: they're no longer in the storage business; they're in the moving business. They will not hold inventories. They will not hold the securities that the world wants to sell to them, and so that's what the worry is.
Real quickly here, then, you're saying that the repo uproar and the raging debate over this can fold over into longer duration fixed income assets
to all types of fixed income securities, because of the lack of liquidity in these other areas. If it happened in the Treasury market, it can happen in the corporate bond market, where many securities trade by appointment.
Frank Sinatra?
It's December 12th, the same day as the UK election.
And Lagarde's first ECB meeting.
So he sings a song, famously, Old Man River keeps rolling along, so you could, the best version ever, in my opinion.
I'd love to hear one of you sing it.
Emotional song. But the idea is capitalism, etc., keeps rolling along. The UK and democracy will keep rolling along on that day.
To get back to 2 p.m. this afternoon, is this going to be market moving when they start defining whatever in God's name a hawkish cut is?
Powell meets what is likely to be his objective, there'll be no movement in the financial markets because it's already priced for the idea that there could be a hawkish cut or that the Federal Reserve's 3 cuts might be enough, with only about 1 more cut priced in between now and the end of next year. So it should be a stable market.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Tony Cosenzi, thank you so much.
Tony, thank you.
Greatly appreciate that as well. John on the screen, it's sort of like Fed dead before a meeting, you know.
It is. It's all very quiet out there. Bloomberg Surveillance this morning is brought to you by IBKR and CME Group, the new Micro E Mini Futures contracts available at IBKR at the lowest commissions. Learn more at ibkr.com/CME Mini. Tom Keane, muted price action ahead of a big afternoon in the United States.
Yeah, it is. Sterling 128.86 has a Boris Johnson bid to it over the last 24 hours as well. Hawkish cut. You got to love it. I mean, hawkish, they were like really.
What were they like?
This is Bloomberg.
Now the news from New York City. Here is Michael Barr.
Jonathan, Tom, thank you very much. A Ukraine expert on the National Security Council testified yesterday. U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman told congressional investigators he raised concerns twice that President Trump and his European Union ambassador Gordon Sondland inappropriately pushed Ukrainian leaders to investigate the Biden family. Thousands of first responders in California are still battling wildfires up and down the state. Strong Santa Ana winds with gusts of up to 80 miles an hour could last through tomorrow. The NCAA says it will allow student athletes to profit off their name, images, and likeness eventually. The organization's Board of Governors voted unanimously to start working on a proposal. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Tom.
Yeah, Michael Barr, thanks so much to Michael Barr. That night in Detroit, I think it was Cop Theater. Hawkish cut open for Rush.
Oh, this is what it's like.
It was awesome.
Yeah,
this is Bloomberg, the day of the hawkish cut.
Imagine being denied an apartment because of your religion, or your race, or because you have children, or a disability.
It's so wrong.
Yes, but who has the power to stop this?
You do. Each of us has the power. The law is on your side. It's illegal for landlords to discriminate because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you suspect that you have experienced housing discrimination, file a complaint with HUD immediately so we can investigate it. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
To learn more, visit HUD.gov/fairhousing. That's HUD.gov/fairhousing. Or call 1-800-669-9777. 1-800-669-9777. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's environment of market volatility, Pershing's Prime Services is well positioned to support the needs of hedge funds and other alternative investment managers. Whether it's customized financing or securities lending solutions, platform access, or business expansion, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and agile enough to meet your evolving demands. Pershing helps to solve the needs of clients by advocating for them, providing unwavering strength, deep supply, and award-winning service that is at the core of everything we do. Find out what sets Pershing's prime brokerage team apart.
Learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers offered by BNY Mellon's Pershing. Visit our website at Pershing.com. Pershing LLC, member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
You're in charge of hiring, and Indeed has solutions, like online skills tests, which let a candidate show that they are the right hire. And we give you this toy monkey, who will bang its symbols when the right CV appears on your desktop. Okay, there is no monkey. There is no monkey. But there are online skills tests.
See why more than 250,000 companies in the UK use Indeed for hiring. Visit Indeed.com/try today to try skills tests for free today. Terms and conditions apply.
It's hard to find a children's gift which doesn't have a short shelf life. They'll eat all the chocolates in 5 minutes, finish their video games by the end of the week, and grow out of their trainers before you know it. So instead of buying them something just for Christmas,
Buy them something that's for life. Premium bonds from NS&I. Every month they'll have the chance to win cash prizes. And now you can buy premium bonds for any child. Start their savings journey from just £25. Search Gift Premium Bonds to find out more.
Fly with Cathay Pacific to over 70 destinations across Asia and Australia and move beyond the familiar. State-of-the-art cabins, world-class entertainment and award-winning service, making sure you arrive ready to make the most of whatever lies ahead. Whether it's the stunning coastlines of Sydney, the secluded waterfalls of Bali, or the baroque splendor of Manila. Book now at cathaypacific.com. Cathay Pacific. Move beyond.
At Wickes, right now, there's 15% off our wide range of tiles and flooring, on top of existing offers. In-store and at wickes.co.uk. Ends Monday. Terms apply.
When it comes to music, I've heard it all. Pink Floyd, Sean Paul, Slipknot. But in the Which Test Lab, hearing isn't enough. When we test headphones, we really listen. Not just to the music, but to the stuff that gets in the way. The traffic, the chatter, all that. Mind the gap. We simulate the loudest commute to find you the headphones that cancel out the noise. So you know we're only recommending the best.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
From Bloomberg Television, here's Menace Craney.
We're at the Future Investment Initiative 2019 in Riyadh. My guest is Peter Krause. He is CEO of Aperture Investors. You had $1 billion, I think, at the half-year mark in the last story that I read. What's the number you can tell us now in terms of
$1,650,000? And we'll be adding two more managers by the end of the year, and that'll get us over $2.2 billion.
There's a couple of big themes in the market that I want to get a sense of. The IPO, Matthew has just been talking about it. It's in every conversation here. The Aramco IPO. What's it going to do from a global perspective when that lists on the Tadawul to the global investment community?
Well, I think, first of all, it's going to be a showcase IPO, and all investors all over the world are going to be interested in taking a hard look at it. It's going to be the largest company in the world, and I'd be surprised if investors weren't very careful about how they get into the security. It may, in fact, cause people who are in the energy sector to move money from one stock to another stock, but that's probably temporary. I don't think that's a long-term structural change.
And in terms of a global listing, do you think it should be New York, London, or Hong Kong?
Well, that's a tough one. I think that if I was that company and given that size, I'd want to list in frankly all those.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. It is 7:17 on Wall Street, and Bloomberg Daybreak is out on customer terminals, bringing you all the news you need to start your day. Let's get a check of the latest headlines with Hannah George at the Bloomberg Daybreak desk. Good morning, Hannah.
Good morning, Karen. The Fed is all but certain to cut rates today for a third time. Investors price the odds at 90%, but economists give it a 75% chance. We get US GDP at 8:30 a.m. Wall Street time, with forecasts predicting growth slowing to a 1.6% annualized pace. That would be the second lowest quarter since President Trump took office. Apple's holiday quarter forecast will be closely watched today. When it comes to earnings, analysts predict another decline in iPhone revenue for the period. And in California, more than 1 million people remain without power. PG&E is pledging a one-time credit for an earlier blackout this month. Meanwhile, Edison International and Sempra Energy may cut service to another 345,000 customers as windstorms move south. For all the news you need to start your day, check out Daybreak on your mobile phone on the Bloomberg Anywhere app. Karen.
All right, Hannah George, thank you. Still watching shares of General Electric up more than 5% in early trading. It raised its 2019 cash flow forecast for the second consecutive quarter. S&P futures, Dow futures, NASDAQ futures, all little change. NASDAQ futures, well, they're up almost 0.1%, actually. They're up 7 points right now. 10-year Treasury up 430 seconds, yield 1.82%. Yield on the 2-year, 1.63%. NYMEX crude oil is down 0.3% or 16 cents at 55.37 a barrel. COMEX gold up 0.33%, up $4.80 at $14.95.50 an ounce. The euro 1.1111 against the dollar. The yen 108.85. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and John.
Karen, thanks so much. Exceptional day. Fed today, of course, jobs day on Friday. We'll go beneath the headline data on Friday. From the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studios, Tom Keene, John Farrell, a dead Fed screen. That's what we've got right now. But we've got excitement. We've got politics. And, of course, as we do with surveillance, our Brexit coverage to the election of December 12 will only be with people with British accents. John?
The week starts right now. Tom Keene, thank you. Let's bring in Bloomberg's Emma Chandra, who also, fortunately enough, has a British accent. Yes. That means she's an expert on all things British politics. Emma, walk me through what we've learned in the last 24 hours and whether this could possibly provide a path forward.
I always knew this British accent would come in helpful at some point. But as you said, we heard yesterday MPs in the UK Parliament finally giving Prime Minister Boris Johnson approval for an early general election. That's due to be held now on the 12th of December. It does need to be approved by the House of Lords in the UK, but that's largely seen as a formality. What we'll see now really is Parliament be dissolved next week. That allows for 5 weeks of official campaigning before the general election on December the 12th. MPs will go back to their constituencies to campaign in that general election. And of course, Brexit is likely to dominate the conversation there with the various different parties laying out their stalls with regard to Brexit. Certainly the Prime Minister Boris Johnson and the Conservatives intend to campaign on getting Brexit done. Though, of course, there is the problem that Prime Minister Boris Johnson had said that he would get Brexit done by the 31st of October. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays, whether or not he can make the case that Parliament has frustrated him in his ability to do that. On the other side of the coin, of course, we have the Labour Party led by Jeremy Corbyn. They have a slightly more nuanced approach to Brexit, and it'll be interesting to see whether they can bring that nuance to the fore for voters in terms of what they would do should they win the election. In terms of current polling, we're looking at 36% in favour of the Conservatives, 23% in favour of the Labour Party, but of course they've been wrong in the past.
Yeah, Emma, you know how this works. We'll spend 50% of the time talking about the polls and then the other 50% talking about why the polls aren't really worth much. Why is this one so different this time around?
In terms of the election, it's so different because, of course, it is an emergency election. It's the third time we've had an election in some 5 years. And, of course, it is really all about what happens with Brexit, and it really will matter in terms of who wins, whether or not the Conservative Party gets a majority and is able to deliver by the end of January.
Emma, where Mr. Corbyn's from, is it Islington, John?
North London, yeah.
North London. I can get a 1,300 square foot walk up for £1 million, which I think is clocking in at 1.2.
That seems very cheap.
Yeah, it's a steal. Okay, what's the municipal left? I mean, there's this phrase of the Labour Party scrambling for its future of Mr. Corbyn's city urbanized left versus the union left or the blue collar left. Does Labour have a pulse in this election if all they've got left is the municipal left with $1.3 million for a 1,300 square foot walk up?
It is a very interesting question, Tom, and how the Labour Party has changed over the last few years. Certainly with the election of Jeremy Corbyn as the leader, seen to be much further to the left, an avid socialist at one point, a Marxist, and he's really brought in a lot of young people into the Labour Party, and young people who perhaps have felt that they have been, they've fared worse out of conservative austerity over the last few years, that they're not able to get on the housing ladder. But then, of course, you do have the older Labour heartlands outside of London and the southeast, and what you've had there is a number of those Labour voters voting to leave the European Union versus the more urban Labour voters voting to remain in the European Union. And this is why Labour is in such a dilemma over what its Brexit policy should be and how they can appeal to both these sides of their party.
Emma Chandra, always great to catch up with you, joining us out of London, Bloomberg's very own and one of our very best, walking us through the election on December 12th. Tom, the path forward, that's what we all want for the Brexit debate. If the Conservatives win, they get a majority, they have an agreement that they can push through. If they don't, then are we back to square one of negotiations with the EU again?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that goes without question. What geography in the United Kingdom interests John Farrell right now? Do you look at East Anglia to the northeast? Do you look way up north to Scotland? What's the geography?
So I think look for some Leave seats, some vote Leave seats in the north of the country. And what I think is going to be really interesting is to see if those seats are contested by both the Brexit Party and the Conservative Party.
And do they come together?
Do they come together, or, Tom, do they split the vote and Labour manages to win the seat off the back of that? That's why this is really complex. You can know the percentage of the vote, but not know the percentage of the seats won because of the way this might split either way across party lines and across Brexit lines.
Can you bring a 6-week campaign to America?
Wouldn't that be great, just to speed the whole thing up?
It would just help so much.
And the parties could select their leader a whole lot quicker.
So the next day, whoever wins, there's a new parliament. Majority or minority.
Democracy in the UK is brutal. If the Prime Minister loses, he leaves number 10 the following morning.
I watch Game of Thrones.
You don't get a few months to sort of work things out and pack a box.
Okay, that was great. On the election in the United Kingdom, it is Fed Day. Stay with us. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Shares of General Electric are moving higher in pre-market trading. GE raised its 2019 cash flow forecast for the second straight quarter, giving CEO Larry Culp's turnaround effort a much-needed boost. Other companies reporting their earnings today include Facebook, Apple, Lyft, and Starbucks. Boeing CEO Dennis Muhlenberg returns to Capitol Hill today to testify before the House Committee on Transportation about the embattled 737 MAX jet. We also have the Fed in focus, investors paying a lot of attention to what Chair Jay Powell will say at the press conference later, but an interest rate cut is widely expected. After months of speculation over how much AT&T would charge for its new HBO Max streaming service, the company has decided to charge the same price it does for HBO, $14.99 a month. But HBO Max will still be the priciest of the major streaming services. The most popular Netflix tier is $13 a month. Disney's new product out next month is $7, and Apple TV Plus will cost just $5. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients, and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
I've got to tell you about our beautiful city break in Bath. Midweek is the perfect time to beat the crowds. Just an hour and a half by train from London. It was so relaxing. We headed straight for Bath Christmas Market. Oh, I can still smell the roasted chestnuts and mulled wine from the chalets. Next, we donned our skates for Bath on Ice. I'm a natural. Didn't have to hold on to anything or anyone. There's so much to do in Bath. I'm already planning my next trip.
Discover the magic of Bath this Christmas. Plan ahead at visitbath.co.uk/Christmas.
It's another Wednesday morning. Yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and witness luscious scenery and calming waves. Fly from London Gatwick to St. Lucia with British Airways, with flights and 7 nights hotel from just £739 per person. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
They don't chant your name when you give blood, or sing songs about you. But patients and their families will remember you forever. Because your blood can change their lives. We need more blood donors in Tooting, the West End and Edgware. Bleed for London. Join us today at blood.co.uk.
There's something for everybody this Halloween at Aldi. Dead good sweets, decorations, face paints. Be afraid. Be very afraid to miss out on these shockingly low prices. In store now. Everybody get to Aldi for an amazing Halloween.
Halloween's back, alright.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
From New York City, this is Bloomberg Surveillance for our audience worldwide. We're live on Bloomberg Radio, 2 hours away from the opening bout. The news you need to know this hour. U.S. equity futures and European stocks in a holding pattern as we await word from the Federal Reserve, the central bank issuing its latest policy decision at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Economists looking for the third straight rate cut. Ahead of that, we get the latest reading on U.S. growth. Economists surveyed by Bloomberg predicting GDP rising 1.6% in the third quarter. On the earnings front, a lot to look out for. Facebook and Apple after the close. General Electric out this morning with results that beat expectations. GE raising its cash flow forecast for the second consecutive quarter. That has shares higher by 5% in early trading. And over in Europe, another lackluster quarter for Deutsche Bank as the German lender failed to hold a slump in revenue. Shares of Deutsche lower by 6% in Frankfurt. A little bit more on that a little bit later. Let's get you some headlines from elsewhere, shall we? Let's say good morning to Michael Barr. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Jonathan. Good morning, Tom. The House impeachment inquiry prepares for more witnesses today. Yesterday, an Army officer who serves on President Trump's National Security Council told investigators he twice raised concerns over the push to have Ukraine investigate Joe Biden. And Democrats and Republicans got into a shouting match while interviewing Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman. Democrats accused the GOP of trying to reveal the anonymous whistleblower who started the impeachment inquiry. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
Banning the whistleblower is an unpatriotic action. They shouldn't go near that.
More than 1 million people have been hit with yet another power outage in California as PG&E tries to prevent more wildfires by implementing a third round of sweeping blackouts in a week. Former Trump aide George Papadopoulos, who was jailed for lying to the FBI, is now planning to run for Congress. He wants the seat occupied by Katie Hill, who's vacating it because of ethics investigations. Global news, 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Jonathan.
Michael Barr, thank you, sir. It's time now for the Bloomberg NBC Sports Report. Here is John Stashower.
John, it's been a strange World Series, the first of the 115-year history of the Fall Classic to have the road team win the first 6 games. The series is close, tied at 3, Game 7 tonight. The games, except for the opener, have not been that close. The Nationals last night scored twice, 7th and 9th inning, pulled away, beat the Astros 7-2. 2 longtime members of the Nats led them to victory. Steven Strasburg, 2 outs in a complete game, allowed 2 runs first inning, but nothing after that. Caps a postseason where Strasburg went 5-0 with an ERA under 2. 2 road wins when a loss would have ended the Nats season. And Houston native Anthony Rendon, who led all of baseball in RBIs, drove in 5 with a single, double, and home run. Justin Verlander took the loss, now 0-6 in his career in the World Series. Max Scherzer has recovered from that neck injury. He'll start Game 7 tonight against Houston. Zach Greinke, who has not pitched well in the postseason. 3rd time in 4 years the series going 7 games. At the Garden, good win for the Rangers. They scored 3 times in 6.5 minutes of the third period. They beat Tampa Bay 4-1. Seton Hall has suspended basketball coach coach Kevin Willard 2 games for transfer tampering. With the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update, I'm John Stashower. John?
John Stashower, thank you very much, sir. John, with the sports, you've had the news. Let's get you some price action. The week really does start now. A Fed decision later on this afternoon. Earnings from Apple, Facebook after the close. Chinese PMIs later this evening. Payrolls coming up on Friday. Equity futures ahead of all of that. Totally unchanged, up just a single point on the S&P 500. Muted price action in foreign exchange and in the bond market too. Yields come at a single basis point on the 10-year. Your yield on a 10-year Treasury, 1.82%.
From our world headquarters in New York, good morning, everyone. John Farrow and Tom King. Fed Day as we go on to Jobs Day on Friday as well. The Bloomberg NJIT STEM Report brought to you by New Jersey Institute of Technology, offering hands-on learning in the largest makerspace in New Jersey for those working in manufacturing and mechatronics. More at njit.edu/manufacturing. Here's Bob Moon.
Tom, Jonathan, good morning. Here's what's making news in science, technology, engineering, and math. It was a moving moment during the State of the Union address this past February when President Trump honored a 10-year-old New Jersey girl, a brain tumor survivor named Grace Eline.
Hi, Grace.
She received a standing ovation that night for raising more than $40,000 for the fight against cancer, even as she underwent chemotherapy and radiation treatment. The president used the moment to call for more progress against pediatric cancer.
Many childhood cancers have not seen new therapies in decades.
The $500 million 10-year research plan he announced that night is still awaiting final approval, but experts are hoping it will bring down barriers that have kept medical researchers from sharing their data. Large data sets are critical to unlocking new answers in cancer research, but a culture of sharing is relatively new in academic medicine, which has a reputation for hoarding valuable data sets. Experts at a recent panel discussion say there's a growing willingness, though, to share and collaborate. One barrier has been getting databases to essentially talk to each other. So one of the things they hope to do is make these data sets communicate better. They also hope to improve language used in consent forms to allow for easier data sharing. It's hoped the pediatric researchers can learn lessons from the treatment of children that might open the doors to breakthroughs on adult cancers as well. That's the Bloomberg NJIT STEM Report. Tom, Jonathan.
Bob Moon, thanks so much. 5 things you need to know. Lots to talk about here on Fed Day. 5 things you need to know to start your day. Brought to you by Portfolio Analyst, powered by Interactive Brokers. Savvy investors use Portfolio Analyst to create a consolidated view of their finances and check the health of their complete financial portfolio. Download for free. Do that at ibkr.com/PA. Hawkish cut. Okay, I guess that's it. And John, am I right that the economic data is a little tepid, and other than that, it's pretty good?
A couple of cracks. Things are still okay. Let's be clear about that. The hawkish element of a hawkish cut is the and what. If you cut interest rates, and what? Do you offer some dovish guidance about further interest rate cuts, or do you basically leave it pretty ambiguous, leave it pretty unclear?
In your read of this, have we ever had a dovish rate increase? A dovish
We've had
increase?
dovish hikes. We've had dovish hikes.
A dovish
you
hike.
can have a hawkish cut and a dovish hike. I think it's all rubbish when you think about it, Tom. At the end of the day, this Fed has said they're going to have a mid-cycle adjustment. Most people assumed it would be 75 basis points.
Right.
They cut today. That makes it 75 basis points.
Michael McKee, what will a cut accomplish? I'm hearing a little
perennial
bit of
question.
little confidence.
Look, I think Mike's asked that question again and again, and still
Crescenzi was like,
Chairman Powell has struggled to give a clear answer on that. I think it's tough for Chairman Powell today. No summary of economic projections, no dot plot, no forecast. The guidance will come from his mouth in the news conference.
Howard Ward, brilliant today with Gabelli on Apple. We see that tonight as well. Howard and I were counting the times where Apple was done. It's not going to work. And Howard is a long-term blue chip owner and patient investor, said they own the ecosystem.
And you own an iPhone 11. You own an 11.
Plural.
There's the whole fam.
No, plural.
The whole fam.
Vet Bill does not have the 11.
But the rest of the fam has an 11.
Yeah.
Are we happy with the product?
Extremely happy. Yeah, no, not more than that.
Can you tell it's a proper upgrade?
Yes, in a heartbeat. Like the moment you touch it, it's
okay.
And I guess that's what's happening. I don't want to predict what's going to happen in the meeting, but Howard Ward was great. Okay, let's get to it. It's a Washington final moment here. David Rubenstein joining us later, out with a wonderful new book on history. And I asked him, are you going to buy the Washington Redskins? And he said no. Michael Barr joining us, Bloomberg Business and Sports. The Redskins really matter to football, and they used to matter to Washington.
Yes.
Have they given it up in Washington because they're just so bad?
No, because, I mean, the Redskins are always going to be there. And the fans, you're always going to have that fan base. I mean, even back when it was called RFK, they still are going to be there.
Inform our global audience, including John Farrow, the majesty of baseball tonight. The seventh, it's different, isn't it?
This is Game 7. This is the first time in World Series history that the road teams won the 6 games previously. And now is also the first time in World Series history you have 2 Cy Young winners going at it.
So, and I don't know if there's an English football equivalent, John. If somebody stumbles 8 pitches in, they get the starters up in the bullpen to come in, right?
That's right. In fact, Scherzer was warming up last night.
And he's going to start tonight.
He's going to start tonight.
How many people are actually watching this? What are the audience
Not as
figures?
many. Michael, help us here. The answer is not as many as used to.
Not as many, but I bet tonight they'll be watching. And I'm so glad that the Trey Turner.
20 million. It's not Super
No, it's not going to be 20 million, but it's going to be more than the 12 million that was previously.
Yeah, it's been really ugly ratings, John.
We get 12 million watching Coronation Street on a Wednesday night in Manchester.
Oh, wait. Well, let's go right to it right now, folks. This is appropriate on Fen Day. I'm afraid to ask, John, how many watch Love Island in the United Kingdom?
I don't know, like 5-6 million?
Which on a per capita basis is like 200 million watching Super Bowl.
That just fell off a cliff.
TV ratings in the UK. For if you had a semi-final of a major soccer championship that involved England,
a derby,
you would have about 20 million people tune in to watch England in a semi-final.
See how he just takes all the fun out of Game 7 of the World Series?
I just don't think your ratings are that impressive at 10, 12
No, they're not.
million
But
for a
seriously,
population
Michael,
of 350
it ain't what it used to be, is it?
No, it's not. It's not. But I guarantee tonight's game is going to be.
Who's going to win? Come on.
I'm going to go for the Nationals.
The Nationals.
I'm going to go for the Nationals. I'm sorry, Amy.
Michael Barr, Bloomberg Business and Sports. He just said that for Washington 99.1 FM. Good morning. Bloomberg Radio, Washington. Oh, wait, none of them are in today. This is Bloomberg. Good morning.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their business strategically. Yet, the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating platform, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
I'm Steve Meyer, president of SEI's Investment Manager Services. At SEI, we understand the emerging forces that will define success for asset managers and what firms will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continually optimize SEI's global operating platform. If your business requires greater agility, our advanced technology, integrated best-in-class systems, and multi-asset expertise can be your catalyst for business transformation.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
With a blue.
It's another Wednesday morning. Yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick to see spectacular coral reefs and white sand beaches. Fly from London Gatwick to Mauritius with British Airways, with flights and 7 nights hotel from just £949 per person. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
Why is Lizzie going rental for Fizzy Haze? Is it because her flat is so beautiful and spacious? Snazzy! Or has roof terrace, garden and party room? Surprising! Or because it's 18 minutes to Paddington? Easy! With friendly staff on hand to take any deliveries? Amazing! Or just because her fuzzy friend can live there too? Find your new home at fizzyhaze.com. Fizzy Living. Reinventing renting.
They don't chant your name when you give blood or sing songs about you. But patients and their families will remember you forever. Because your blood can change their lives. We need more blood donors in Tooting, the West End and Edgware. Bleed for London. Join us today at blood.co.uk.
I've always loved a kitchen experiment, especially smoothies. I've blended all sorts of mad combinations. Strawberry and charcoal, broccoli and chocolate. Not my best, that. But when I test blenders in the Witch Lab, it's not about flavour, it's about performance. Our tests use proper tough stuff, hard ice, strong veg, rough nuts. And the blenders that can hack it are the only ones we recommend for your kitchen.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
Today, on air and at TikTok on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
With wildfires blazing away north and south in California, the state is facing historically high Santa Ana winds. Pacific Gas and Electric meteorologist Scott Strunfeld.
Critical and extreme fire danger that covers 34,000 square miles in California, a massive area, as well as covers over 21 million Californians, both in northern and southern California.
Power cuts will affect 2.5 million Californians today. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has unveiled a resolution setting rules for public impeachment hearings and a possible vote on articles of impeachment. The full House votes on that tomorrow. 3 people shot and killed late last night outside of a home in Long Beach, California, where a Halloween party was underway. Jake Heflin of the Long Beach Fire Department.
So a total of 12 patients involved in the incident. 9 of them were transported to local area hospitals and are currently being evaluated.
No word on any arrest. Last night's Nats 7-2 win over the Astros forces a Game 7 tonight. I'm Michael Toscano.
Why all the top-tier experts? Because business is not a magic trick.
Give us a sense of the economic backdrop.
Bloomberg Markets.
Which financial records are these?
Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. General Electric raising its 2019 cash flow forecast for the second consecutive quarter, giving Chief Executive Officer Larry Culp's turnaround effort a much-needed boost. The shares are climbing up 4.7% in early trading. GE said the manufacturing business will generate as much as $2 billion in free cash this year. Sources tell Bloomberg Apple expects iPhone sales to return to growth next year as the introduction of a line of 5G devices supercharges demand. U.S. stocks, meanwhile, oil are drifting alongside European shares as markets largely enter a holding pattern in the countdown to the Federal Reserve's policy decision. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. Right now, S&P futures are up about 2 points. Dow futures up 4. NASDAQ futures up 14. The DAX in Germany's down about 0.2%. 10-year Treasury up 4/30 seconds. Yield 1.82%. Yield on the 2-year 1.63%. NYMEX crude oil is up 0.3% or 16 cents at $55.70 a barrel. COMEX gold up 1/3% or $5.10 at $14.95.70 an ounce. The euro 1.1113 against the dollar. The yen is at 108.85. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and John.
Karen, thank you. Thank you very much. What a day for tech coming up. After the close, Tom, earnings from Apple and Facebook.
No, I thought you meant we had to go to the Apple store today and buy another damn toy.
No. We get the quarterly results.
We do.
After the close.
Great. And Facebook as well, right?
Yes. So I'm pleased to say we can bring in David Kirkpatrick of Techonomy, the CEO and founder, and the author of that book you love.
The Facebook Effect. It ends with Zuckerberg at the end of a driveway in California where his life is changing. David Kirkpatrick, I thought of that moment as you end your book collegiately. And just to cut to the chase, how much of a train wreck on a Kirkpatrick meter was his testimony to Congress?
I think it was a big train wreck. I mean, weirdly, people said he performed well, and some people liked it. But I think he doesn't know what to say in public because he's really unwilling to actually compromise in any fundamental way.
Okay, well, but he's a genius. Come on, he got where he got, as you show in the Facebook Effect. Folks see it in theaters coming up. David, he's supposed to hand off the business stuff to other people. Has he done that?
Well, yes, he has had. I mean, basically, all he cares about is the product and growth. And growth. That's the mantra that Facebook has always had, and it continues to have, and that's his obsession. Some people said, in listening to his testimony, that he didn't even seem to understand what Libra was supposed to be or how it was actually supposed to work. He didn't answer many of the toughest questions. But I think it's. When he goes to Washington, what he really wants is just people to understand that he's really doing a good thing. That's, in his mind, what it's all about. He believes he is a gift to the world. Facebook is a gift to the world that we just don't understand. And if he believes truly that if we just understood it, we wouldn't be so critical of him.
That's what we say every day about John Farrow.
David, it's always great to have you with us on the program. Tom and I have talked about Inside Bill's Brain, which is this great documentary about Bill Gates on Netflix. And within that documentary, Bill Gates is asked about his performance down in Washington, D.C. in the 90s and through the early 2000s. And he uses one word to reflect on the younger Bill Gates: naive. Do you think Mark Zuckerberg is repeating the errors that Bill Gates made when he had to go to D.C. in the same way?
Absolutely. I mean, it's funny how much Gates has changed. And yes, I absolutely think that analogy is completely apt. And the age is not too dissimilar. I think Gates was a little older at that time. So Zuckerberg's probably 5 to 10 years younger now that I think of it than Gates was then. So, his age, he's just so young. Let's face it. The guy's worth $75 billion at age 35 or 36. And I think that also, in his own mind, is a legitimizer of his behavior. How could I be wrong if I'm so rich? I mean, really. Yeah. So, I think there's a tragedy unfolding with this company that is of monumental and historic scale.
Right. David Kirkpatrick with us, The Facebook Effect. David, there was a point in the dorms of Amherst College a few years ago where you walked in some rich kid's room and they had the Apple, the Mac, the little cubey thing now in the Smithsonian. Since that time, Apple has been rumored to die, 15 times? Every time there's a product cycle, this is it, they're done, they're over. They're really once again proving the resiliency here based on the rumors on this new phone, right?
Well, they are an astonishingly resilient company. You joked before I came on that you might have to run down to the Apple store again later today. I saw their new AirPod, and I was thinking, I have a perfectly good AirPod, but I'm so reliant on it, and if it worked even slightly better, my life would probably be better. Therefore, it's worth it to spend $250 for a marginal increase of efficiency in my life. Yeah, Apple's products, I almost said Facebook, Apple's products are the source of digital efficiency in my life. And really, I mean, I might think I'm addicted. I might think that I'm overstressed because of all the things I do, but I need it. My work life depends on it, and Apple facilitates it, and they do it with enormous skill and capability.
I mean, David, my entire team wears AirPods so they don't have to talk to me. You know, they stick them in their ear all day, so, you know, I think they're busy. You okay over there?
I'm okay. Are you okay? What are you looking at?
Maria's on right now on Fox Biz with Vet Bill.
Is that your dog?
It's my dog. Maria
That's
borrowed
your
my dog. It's Vet Bill with a Superman costume on.
How much you invoicing Fox Biz for that?
I'm not. You know, Vet Bill's free to do what he wants. He's got an agent.
Can I get back to the conversation?
Please, with David Kirkpatrick on Apple.
I'm listening. It is fun.
I want to talk about Facebook earnings as well after the close. Any evidence so far, David, that the political spotlight on Mark Zuckerberg is damaging the bottom line?
Not really. I mean, we've got to keep our ears closely attuned to that because obviously their costs of remediating the many harms they cause society are raising their costs generally a lot, but not so much that it's really had a significant effect on a company whose profits are so monumental. So I don't think we'll see significant harm in today's earnings. I think, growth revenues are just powering forward, although you see a massive shift over time from the developed countries to the developing countries. I mean, really, Americans are not using Facebook as much as they used to. The same is true in Europe, and that is a significant long-term problem for them. On the other hand, even to the degree we use it, we remain perfect targets for advertising on Facebook because the advertisers don't have a better place to go, and that continues to be their ace in the hole.
Well, David, let's explore the analogy and the parallels with Microsoft a little bit further. I forget the precise word you used, but it sounded like something like tragedy. What was about to happen with Facebook wasn't going to end very well. With Microsoft, things have ended really, really well. In fact, arguably, they've got even better. Why does the movie end differently with Facebook?
Well, I'm not sure that it does. I'm not saying Facebook inevitably cannot respond to these social concerns and revive itself somehow, but I think the key would be for Zuckerberg to have some kind of fundamental revelation that he thus far has not had about his need to change course. And, a changing course probably would also entail a significant hit to earnings over time, but then I think they could possibly rebuild from there. Look, they have a service people want to use, and it's growing in the largest sense, on a planetary level. So I think they could revive, but I just don't think yet they have the humility or, as we said earlier, maybe the maturity to see what they need to do.
In February 2014, John Farrell mentions Microsoft folks. David Kirkpatrick, what are the best practices that Mr. Nadella did as he revolutionized modern Microsoft?
Wow. Gee, I didn't know you were going to ask about that. I think
it's a surveillance interview. Come on, I got Maria's dog into the interview. I'm doing okay.
There's a humility at Microsoft that is, I recently was interviewing Brad Smith, who's the number 2 at Microsoft, on stage about his new book, which is really, really excellent, by the way. And there's enormous humility to his book. Microsoft has, I think you had to get rid of Ballmer. Ballmer was a great leader in some ways, but he had no humility. Satya recognizes that they are in a position that requires a bigger picture view, and somehow they had, Ballmer had positioned them in relation to the cloud, that the raw material was there, and Satya had been a big part of that before he became CEO. And, they are now becoming, I think they're a genuine threat to Amazon as the dominant cloud player. I wouldn't rule out the possibility that over the next few years, Microsoft could grow equally strong and maybe even stronger than Amazon for a lot of reasons.
If Amazon gets to, very quickly, if Amazon gets to 1 million employees, is that a signal for the government to break up Amazon, break up Microsoft, break up Bloomberg surveillance?
We're really jumping around.
They want to break this show up.
I think the government pressure to break these companies up is going to grow. I'm not a strong believer that it's the right answer, but the pressure is real. But the problem with Amazon, and really to some extent all these companies, is even though everybody loves to complain about them and people in Washington hate their scale, the average American wants to use their services, and that's particularly true with Amazon. So politicians who start messing with Amazon are going to have to be very careful, because customers, which are voters, are not going to want too much change.
This has been wonderful, David. Thanks for a wide-ranging briefing here this morning. Really good. I'm glad you mentioned Facebook, seriously.
Well, you've underplayed that, a wide-ranging interview.
It was wide-ranging. I mean, you do that with
25 different tangents.
Kirkpatrick, I had Paul Kudrowski and David Kirkpatrick on the day of the Facebook IPO, and they were both brilliant. And Kirkpatrick nailed it. Facebook was going down in flames. And he said there is tangible growth, revenue, and profit.
What song's this? What are you playing?
This is ZZ Top.
Is it?
It's like a hawkish cut kind of thing.
You know, like an 80s investigative drama when they go to commercial break. That's what it sounds like.
ZZ Top.
It's another Wednesday morning. Yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick, and relax with 365 beautiful beaches.
So yes, sir, what would you like to have?
Fly from London Gatwick to Antigua with British Airways from £223 each way, based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
Cold Wednesday mornings like this are cruel. You cough, you splutter, so does your car. Its battery dead, killed by an icy claw. Will anyone stand up to winter? Yes, you. Come to Halfords. We fit new batteries on the spot from just £15, and we're open late 7 days a week. See halfords.com for opening hours. Here in Chiswick. Ready for the cold snap? Ready for anything. Halfords, for life's journeys.
Batteries sold separately. Selected vehicles only in most stores.
Capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Surveillance Economics.
The Federal Reserve's independence is crucial.
Central banks should be prepared and not presumptuous.
Finance.
In order to grow, you need to innovate.
Global money doesn't like uncertainty.
Investment.
I think the issue in the market is really more about the possibility of a recession in the next couple of years.
I do think we need to get back to where we have always been, the American dream.
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrow on Bloomberg Radio.
Good morning, everyone. John Farrow and Tom King, we're fired up for Fed Day, back-to-back, Wednesday on to Friday, Jobs Day. Scheduled. John Farrow speaking to Mr. Kudlow on the White House lawn. We'll see if that occurs. It could be, John, seriously, it could be an under 100,000.
Yeah, a big GM impact. I think the median estimate in our Bloomberg survey, the latest read is sub 100K.
Yeah, so there's to Friday, but to today, it is really going to be interesting. We're making jokes about hawkish cut. They open for Rush. Okay, hawkish cut is where they do a cut, but the jawbone is one and done. This is it.
Something along those lines. Yeah. They don't communicate a dovish path forward after this interest rate reduction. And when I say they, we're looking at a statement and a news conference. There is no forecast that comes with this.
Bonus round for Bloomberg Radio and Bloomberg Surveillance. I've done a monthly series of the 310 spread. I will take it to weekly. I will construct that here, and we'll get that out on Twitter. You'll see it first here on 3-month, 10-year spread, which is back up, disinverting. It's back up to positive, more optimistic tone as well. Bloomberg Surveillance this morning. Brought to you by Cone Resnick. Check out Business of Baseball, an original MLB video series exploring the business side of America's pastime. Visit ConeResnick.com/MLB Cone Resnick Advisory Assurance Tax. We thank Cone Resnick for their support of Bloomberg Surveillance, their support of Business of Baseball. We do this with a Game 7 game today. Always, it's the American way.
I'll be watching it.
Truth, justice, and
looking forward to it.
All that as well. We have the right guest right now to talk about a plethora of things. What do? Do you start with sterling?
I think we have to start with December 12th.
Yeah, please.
And Jordan Rochester will be up all night waiting for those results to come in. He joins us from Nomura, FX strategist. He joins us out of London. Jordan, your thoughts and what you're communicating to clients this morning?
Indeed, John. Thanks for having me on. So, yes, it will be a Brexmas or a New Year's Eve. It depends on what you want to call it. But, yes, it will be a spooky Friday the 13th when we get those results from the election. And what I'm telling clients right now is, yes, the polling says the Conservatives should get a majority. And, yes, that means a deal should be done. And if all of this goes to plan, as Boris would like, you should see the pound higher. Now, how much higher? So based on the Tories getting a majority, based on Boris continuing to back a deal and entering the transition period, that's about 4% higher in the pound on that scenario alone. However, every election has just given us a different result to what was expected at the beginning of that campaign. So 2010, it led to a swing in the Lib Dems. David Cameron had a coalition government, not a majority. 2015, we didn't see Ed Miliband win the election as expected. It was David Cameron with a majority. And we all know how 2017 went with Theresa May, and she had a hung parliament and gave up that big polling lead she had over that campaign period. And one of the main reasons for this is since 2011, the campaign period has been extended from what used to be just a short 2-week period to 6. And it's very hard to control the narrative for 6 weeks. So what do I expect for sterling going forward? I think actually weakness, John. I know it's been a bit boring this morning and yesterday. We're still trading in the ranges. But what you could see is you could see the Tory majority in the polling get questioned either by a Labour Party surge or more likely a Brexit Party surge. And this is kind of a downside scenario for the market. If there's any involvement from the far right of the Brexit spectrum, Nigel Farage, that means pound lower.
So what do you do seriously in sterling, not only cable, not only euro sterling, but just the sterling complex as well? Does Nomura stand aside until December 13?
No, we're involved here. So we've been long the pound since August, and it's been a rough ride. Lots of political headlines. The mental health got tired at some time.
So you're buying drinks
today? That trade worked pretty well. We bought sterling via the euro, so we were selling the euro during that period. But I took it off a few days ago, and instead I've flipped it. I'm now short the pound because I think foreign investors will see an election and think, you know what, I'm just going to hold back. I'm just going to not invest in the UK for the next couple of weeks. Well, that's going to mean pound lower.
For our global Wall Street audience, how do you affect that trade? If you short pound a weaker pound sterling, against what is the most efficient trade?
Well, against the dollar is the most efficient trade because it allows you to have a positive interest rate return just by holding the position, what we call a long carry trade. So even though the Fed's looking to cut rates today, you've got higher interest rates in the US. So owning dollars over pounds is a nice trade to have. Now, I'm doing it via the euro just because I have a very strong view, and it's the other way around. So when I'm long the euro and short the pound, I'm slightly negative carry, so I have to pay a revolving interest rate charge to hold that trade. But if you want a pure Brexit trade, it's always euro sterling, the euro against the pound. If you want a Brexit trade that works well and also captures recession fears or captures the US outperformance story, you do it via the dollar.
What's the race call, Jordan? The reason I ask this is that we now have basically two parties, the Conservative Party and the Labour Party, throwing austerity in the trash. The Prime Minister talking up spending. Jordan, I just wonder if we're going to have both parties promising to spend more, what that means for gilts.
It's really hard to not expect gilts to underperform in this scenario, John. I think an easier trade may be steepening in the gilts curve because The Bank of England, under a harder Brexit, no-deal scenario, would look to cut interest rates, so front-end interest rates would actually go down. Yeah. But long-end interest rates, so 10-year, 30-year, you'll see the yields on those go higher because, like you said, both parties are giving big spending pledges, and that means more supply, the same amount of demand, therefore prices have to go down.
It's a very guilty moment. Let's move on. Yen, 109. Do you affect yen, stronger yen right now?
So I think a lot of people in the macro space want to buy the yen because it's undervalued from a purchasing power parity perspective and has long been. There's the recession fears, the slowdown fears, and this typically should see yen outperformance. But because of the actions of the Bank of Japan, keeping rates pretty contained, ready to step into the market and ease monetary conditions, dollar yen's been relatively boring and in fact has gone slightly higher over the past couple of months. Now, we aren't involved in this because the Bank of Japan is overnight coming up. I don't think they're going to do anything tomorrow. We're not going to wake up and see that they've cut rates. But if they do, or if they change their guidance, this makes it hard for anyone to own the yen in the short term. So the best risk reward is just to stay neutral here and get a better idea of what's driving the Bank of Japan. But dollar yen does look like it's topping out here, and macro folks may be looking to sell dollar yen if the Bank of Japan doesn't move.
Well, to be clear here, to sell dollar yen, are you saying weaker yen or stronger yen?
Stronger yen. And the reason why I talk about stronger yen is if you look at the business cycle, if we are in a slowdown, the yen outperforms. If we're in a recession, the yen outperforms. It's only when there's green shoots, lovely data, growth picking up, and confidence returning to markets that the yen underperforms. And a lot of folks are yet to think that we're in that cycle. They're still focused on the downside risks.
Same story, to a different degree, applies to the US dollar as well. And Jordan, what's been interesting about the last couple of weeks is a lot of happy talk about the worst being behind us for the global economy in 2019. And when I ask those individuals, put them on the spot and say, okay, if that's what you truly believe, do you think the dollar has peaked? Then they come back with a bit of a shakier answer. What is your view on that right now, Jordan?
Well, the reason why is because we've had a bit of a pickup in emerging markets manufacturing PMIs. We can really data mine and try and find, and we do find, some signs of the German data and the European data having a reason to bounce up, such as the French PMIs earlier a few days ago. So there is but that's not strong enough to invest on. That is a hopeful, maybe it happens. But the reason why they're shaky on that question is because the US data, you just saw the US PMI bounce higher. Now, it's not gone all the way back up to where it was a few months ago, but it has troughed. And hopefully we start to see the Fed cuts feeding through, and we see the manufacturing data improve. But the other way to explain it is the US consumer is very strong. It's in fact picking up on some of our measures. So this is dollar outperformance. This is US economy picking up whilst the rest of the world is still meandering. And therefore the Fed doesn't cut rates as much as priced. There's about 50 basis points priced. We think they only do 25 as of tonight. So therefore, hey-ho, less rate cuts, dollar outperformance.
Jordan, this has been brilliant. Thank you so much. Jordan Rochester, really, really appreciate it today. It's Wednesday, which is, what do you call it, questions?
Prime Minister's questions.
So right now as we speak, Mr. Burkow is the speaker. He's the guy that's been
PMQs is what we call this.
Mr. Corbyn, there's Burkow speaking, now Corbyn's speaking.
Yeah.
And Johnson's there. Is it like, it's got to be all about the election, right?
You would think so, but sometimes other people can bring up random things. But yes, that should be the focus now, the campaign for an election on December 12th.
There it is. It's like really, it's very cool. It's so different than
Jeremy Corbyn with a bright green tie.
Yeah.
Questioning the Prime Minister.
Bright barely does it incandescent. The gentleman from, what do you say, Islington?
Islington.
This is Bloomberg.
And now for the news from New York City, here is Michael Barr.
Jonathan, Tom, thank you very much. More depositions today before House impeachment investigators. 2 State Department Ukraine experts are expected to be deposed as part of the impeachment inquiry, Catherine Croft and Christopher Anderson. Yesterday, 3 House committees heard behind closed doors from Alexander Vindman, the National Security Council's Director for European Affairs. A major chunk of California is on high alert right now because of possibly disastrous wildfire conditions. Wind Wind gusts should hit up to 80 miles an hour in Southern California. Game 7 of the World Series is tonight in Houston, winner take all. The Nationals won last night 7-2 to even the series over the Astros. Global news 24 hours a day on air, to TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg Time.
Michael Barr, thanks so much. Long carry jargon alert with Jordan Rochester. Either learn about carry or listen to Kansas. There's no other way to do it. This is Bloomberg.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's Babbel.com.
Hey y'all, Jeff Foxworthy here. Now, if you've ever found yourself repeating the same thing over and over for 75 years, you might be Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
That's why I'm filling in for Smokey to switch things up, because there's a lot more to say. And I should know because my grandfather was a firefighter. And one of the things he taught me is that the people that love the outdoors the most are often the ones accidentally starting wildfires, which means always BYOB. No, bring your own bucket to the campfire. And be extra careful with things like burning yard trimmings. Don't just walk away, or chances are you might be starting a wildfire. So for the love of the outdoors, go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the...
I've got to tell you about our beautiful city break in Bath. Midweek is the perfect time to beat the crowds. Just an hour and a half by train from London. It was so relaxing. We headed straight for Bath Christmas Market. Oh, I can still smell the roasted chestnuts and mulled wine from the chalets. We dropped off our Christmas shopping at the hotel. Then it was off to be spellbound at the Theatre Royal Bath. There's so much to do in Bath. I'm already planning my next trip.
Discover the magic of Bath this Christmas. Plan ahead at visitbath.co.uk/Christmas.
You're in charge of hiring, and Indeed has solutions, like online skills tests, which let a candidate show that they are the right hire. And we give you this toy monkey, who will bang its cymbals when the right CV appears on your desktop. Okay, there is no monkey. There is no monkey. But there are online skills tests.
See why more than 250,000 companies in the UK use Indeed for hiring. Visit Indeed.com/try today to try skills tests for free today. Terms and conditions apply.
It's hard to find a children's gift which doesn't have a short shelf life. They'll eat all the chocolates in 5 minutes, finish their video games by the end of the week, and grow out of their trainers before you know it. So instead of buying them something just for Christmas, buy them something that's for life. Premium bonds from NS&I. Every month they'll have the chance to win cash prizes. And now you can buy premium bonds for any child. Start their savings journey from just £25. Search Gift Premium Bonds to find out more.
Conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Taylor Riggs.
Joining me from New York, it's Morgan Stanley analyst Adam Jonas. One of your most recent notes really highlighted the connection between climate change and EVs. How much does climate change start to really drive the shift to EVs?
The average car on the road emits almost 5 metric tons of CO2. Okay, there are 40 tons per second of CO2 emitted by all the cars in the United States. It's 40 tons a second. And yet the world's most valuable auto company, Toyota, makes 0 EVs today. It's kind of a shock. And then on the flip side, you have the world's most shorted auto company, Tesla, that only makes EVs. So something has to give.
And how does technology play into this?
We think the connection between tech and autos is when you see these large the trillion-dollar tech platforms like Amazon, Alphabet, and Apple that are clearly have their sights set on the auto industry as a domain. Not necessarily to make cars, but perhaps Apple wants to turn your car into an Apple store. So as tech firms get close to that autonomous vehicle topic and the shared and connected car, they're being drawn in, and they have the resources and the capital and, frankly, the obligation to do something about it.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. It is 8:17 on Wall Street, and we have breaking economic news crossing the Bloomberg. We go to Vinny Del Giudice with the latest. Vinny, good morning.
Hello, Karen. A prelude to the government's monthly employment report Friday. ADP, the payroll provider, reporting businesses added 125,000 workers in October, more than forecast, and with a revision to the prior month, more than September. Again, ADP coming in, topping forecasts, 125,000 private payroll jobs. I'm Vinny Del Giudice. Karen, back to you.
All right, Vinny, thank you. And futures this morning are a little change. We go to the First Word breaking news desk for today's morning call. Here's Bill Maloney. Bill, good morning.
And good morning, Karen. U.S. futures remain quiet since the last time we spoke. Dow futures down 10 points. S&Ps are a little changed. And NASDAQ futures are higher by 9. The U.S. 10-year yield at 1.82%. Gold is up 6, while European markets are trading mixed right now. And note that Airbus cut its full-year delivery and cash flow forecast. Back in the U.S. on the economic front at 8:30, GDP, personal consumption, and core PCE. And at 2 o'clock, the FOMC rate decision. After the bell last night, Amgen boosted its full-year forecast. And regarding some of the earnings this morning, GE gains 7% pre-market after boosting its cash flow outlook. And toy maker Mattel is up 20% pre-market after its earnings. In deal news, Fiat Chrysler and PSA confirmed they are in merger talks. And wrapping things up, Biogen raised outperform at Bernstein. Corning was cut to hold at Deutsche Bank, and Xerox cut to underweight over at JP Morgan. Live from the First Breaking News Desk, I'm Bill Maloney. Karen?
All right, Bill, thank you. And to hear live breaking news over here at Bloomberg, type squawk on your terminal, SQUAWK. And focused on fixed income, brought to you by PIMCO. For investors who demand more than the markets deliver, all investments contain risk and may lose value. Consult your investment professional before investing. 10-year Treasury up 430 seconds, yield 1.82%, and the yield on the 2-year 1.63%, 30-year yield 2.31%. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and John.
Okay, thank you so much, Karen. Greatly appreciate it. This is a really important interview. John's got a million questions for IRA Jersey of fixed income. IRA 3-month, 10-year spread. It's a pro spread everybody looks at. It inverted terribly. World's coming to an end. Summer into autumn, etc. It's come back out. The 10-year yield is higher than the 3-month Treasury bill, out 2 standard deviations off the president's election trend. Can you say there's a breakout now away from inversion and all that gloom?
Well, I think, yeah, the answer is yes, absolutely. Now, part of this has been engineered by the Federal Reserve, because remember, the Federal Reserve is going to be buying, $60 billion of T-bills a month over the next couple of months. And in doing so, what they've done is that 3-month T-bill yield has just dropped a ton. So actually, on that day that they announced it, it dropped 10 basis points. So it uninverted, and it kept on uninverting, primarily because of the Federal Reserve doing, I don't know what you want to call it, right, but, not QE is what Jay Powell said.
Ira Jersey with us, a fixed income. And the reason I was rattled, John, is because the only question I want to ask him is, when John and I go over to do the election in Britain, we've got to delay and see Arsenal Man City.
Oh, sure.
That weekend?
Yeah, that would be a fun match.
I'm sitting here laughing because our producer's going crazy at you for not introducing our guest properly.
We all know Ira Jersey is the star of the Fed Decides. He'll be with us this afternoon.
Ira Jersey of Bloomberg Intelligence. Here's our chief U.S. rate strategist. And it's great to have you with us, Ira. Good morning.
Good morning.
Should talk about the Fed decision. A hawkish cut, is that what you're looking for from Chairman Powell?
Hawkish cut.
Yeah, so it would only be considered hawkish in that, like not hawkish in that the Fed's next move is going to be hiking, right? So it's hawkish relative to not easing. So I would say it's more like does the Fed turn to neutral instead of being in an easing mode? And I think that the market's set up for that. So when you look at what the market's currently pricing, we're pricing a cut today and then not another cut until May or June of next year. So basically the market's priced for a long pause. And I think some of the details around whether or not that's a realistic outcome is something that the market's going to listen to, particularly in the press conference afterwards.
This is really important because typically we go into these kind of meetings with a little bit of tension between the market and the Fed. We're saying there's not much tension relative to previous meetings this time around.
Well, it doesn't seem that way. That being said, it also is not, it's not out of the question that the Federal Reserve could wind up saying and sounding a little bit more dovish maybe than the market currently expects, because you could point to a lot of data, like even the ADP data. It came out, last month's data came out a little bit better than expected, but the prior month was revised down. So it actually winds up being closer to 100,000 print instead of 125,000 print. So that means, if you're worried about the consumer, jobs is a thing that you could point to that says, it's still some fragility in the market.
Do we have an information vacuum today at 2 because we're not getting all the other stuff we typically get at a Fed meeting?
I don't think so. Maybe from 2 to 2:30, but you'll wind up having enough information.
The information will come out in the press
after Jay Powell
No
starts to
dots,
speak.
no forecasts. We know there's a ton of division on the FOMC. We see it in the dot plot. You see it in the statement often
the chart I just put out on Twitter shows the division.
So, Ira, talk to me about how the division comes out in the news conference. Where is the challenge for Chairman Powell today? What's the biggest challenge?
Well, first, I would not be totally surprised if we saw 1 or 2 dissents of some members who didn't want to cut today. That would not surprise me at all. We saw a couple of them back in July. It would not be surprising if those same members ended up dissenting again today. But that being said, even if that happens, I think Jay Powell then has to go out and say, look, we have some members who think that the economy is not doing that badly and therefore we shouldn't be cutting. So, we're going to be data dependent from this time forward.
Are we cutting into negative real yields? Yes.
Well, so real yields actually have moved a little bit higher recently.
I missed that. Excuse me.
So 10-year real yields went from negative 5 basis points to positive 10 basis points. So it's not a lot, but it's still enough to say that the market is expecting some modest but not slowing growth from this point forward. And I think that's an important to this, because what you saw basically from November of 2018 through the summer of this year was a slowing manufacturing sector that seems like maybe it's starting to stabilize a little bit. When you look at some of the survey data like ISM new orders, if that turns like it did in 2016, then we can wind up with a better economic environment going into 2020.
Fascinating.
Thank you.
It's really going to be a different afternoon today. It's going to be just absolutely fascinating. Ira Jersey, thank you so much. With Bloomberg Intelligence, head of all of our fixed income.
James writes in on the Bloomberg terminal subscriber. Great to hear from you, James. He says, "Go England, Rugby World Cup finals. Sorry if I've missed this, but please encourage Tom to watch the Rugby World Cup finals this coming Saturday. After soundly beating the mighty All Blacks, the English are ready. Bring on the Box."
5 a.m. Saturday morning?
The Springboks are what we call South Africa.
And they beat New Zealand.
They did.
And they got fined because they were over the center line.
We're going to make you watch this.
Guy Johnson with us Friday with Perspective. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Shares of General Electric are up 7% in pre-market trading. The company raised its 2019 cash flow forecast for the second straight quarter. All of its manufacturing divisions except power reported sales gains. But the CEO warned of uncertainty surrounding the Boeing 737 MAX and global trade tensions. Stock futures are narrowly mixed. S&P futures up 1, NASDAQ futures up 9, Dow futures are down 9 points. NYMEX crude little change to higher at $55.57 a barrel. Investors are awaiting the outcome of the Federal Reserve meeting. An interest rate cut is widely expected, and investors will pay attention to what Chair Jay Powell says in a press conference afterward. Boeing CEO Dennis Muilenburg returns to Capitol Hill today to testify before the House Committee on Transportation about the embattled 737 MAX after being grilled by senators yesterday.
Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
Startups and research universities like New Jersey Institute of Technology are fueling the innovation economy. And few people are better positioned to see what's on the horizon in New Jersey than physicist and state representative Andrew Zwicker.
How technology is transforming our financial sector is revolutionary, and so much of that is in New Jersey. We are innovators when it comes to agriculture, and there is opportunity now for great transformation in how are we going to grow food in an ever-growing population, and how do we turn urban centers into agricultural centers. Autonomous vehicles is another one where we have some of the world's leading experts, and how this will transform how those who are either elderly or are visually impaired or mobilely impaired can start to use autonomous vehicles to transform their lives and have access to transportation they could have never had before.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu/research.
It's another Wednesday afternoon, yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick to see spectacular coral reefs and white sand beaches. Fly from London Gatwick to Mauritius with British Airways, with flights and 7 nights hotel from just £949 per person. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
Breathe in and out. Every day, you take 20,000 breaths, potentially exposing yourself to harmful particles of pollution. According to the Royal College of Physicians, air pollution contributes to around 1 in 20 deaths in the UK. But at E.ON, we believe it's time to do something about it. We've committed to installing ultra-fast electric vehicle charge points. We offer solar panels and batteries that collect and store energy. And we've helped a citywide transport operator introduce a large fleet of emission-free electric buses. It's time to clear the air. Search E.ON Clean Air.
When it comes to music, I've heard it all. Pink Floyd, Sean Paul, Slipknot. But in the Witch Test Lab, hearing isn't enough. When we test headphones, we really listen. Not just to the music, but to the stuff that gets in the way. The traffic, the chatter, all that. Mind the gap. We simulate the loudest commute to find you the headphones that cancel out the noise. So you know we're only recommending the best.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
London. Switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and V Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Hearing is an underrated miracle. Intimate whispers, the lushness of symphonies, the soothing patter of rain on leaves. If you had that taken away from you, it would be a massive loss for most of us. Almost all of us go every day without really stopping to think about just how important it is to us.
Audible presents The Body, a guide for occupants, written and read by Bill Bryson, including original bonus material exclusively available at Audible. Listen free as part of your 30-day trial, $7.99 a month after 30 days. Renews automatically.
Hi, it's Ali from Grange News. I'm getting everyone into the party mood with these indoor fireworks. Because how else do you celebrate tonight's triple rollover? Trust me, you don't want to miss it.
Lotto, celebrating 25 years of the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
From New York City, this is Bloomberg Surveillance for our audience worldwide. We're live on Bloomberg Radio. Your economic indicators are brought to you by Commonwealth Financial Network for the 6th straight time. J.D. Power ranks Commonwealth #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms. Visit commonwealth.com to learn more. Let's get you that economic data, shall we? Here is Vinny Giudice.
Okay, Jonathan, third quarter GDP slipping below 2%, but better than forecast, coming in at 1.9%. Third quarter GDP, a 1.9% annual pace. Consumer spending also slowing. Inflation gauges, well, sort of a split story. The GDP price index year over year, 1.7 versus 2.4, but core excluding food and energy, 2.2 versus 1.9. Earlier figures from ADP showing the economy added 125,000 private payroll jobs in October, faster than the prior month. And we also have data coming in from the Treasury, quarterly refunding. The Treasury keeps nominal coupon debt at a record $84 billion, and the Treasury is exploring a one-year SOFR issue, a 20-year bond, and a 50-year bond. I'm Vinny Giudice, Bloomberg Radio. Let's go back to New York. Tom, get that 50-year. You'll one year old. You'll need it for your retirement.
Nice guy. I mean, John, there's like 18 things to talk about here, including a good GDP print. Domestic final sales were a little soggy, but all in all, yields lifting, higher yields. It's fractional, but nevertheless, a nice yield impulse. John, do you think it's enough to change the press conference?
No. I think it probably makes it a little bit easier for Chairman Powell if he wants to go on a pause.
Yes,
he can say that
precisely.
We're in and around trend growth for U.S. GDP.
Nominal, I'm going to just state nominal GDP 3.5% is just unacceptable. Politically, you can't move the ship forward on that. Why don't you bring in our esteemed guest?
Matt Hornback heads up rate strategy over at Morgan Stanley, and it's great to have you with us, Matt. Your initial thoughts off the back of that print?
Thanks, John. Yeah, I mean, look, it's a solid GDP number. Obviously, the consumption component there is solid. That's not really a big surprise to me, at least. I mean, the retail sales numbers we've been getting all year have been very, very strong. Consumer confidence has remained very, very high. The wealth effect is clearly impacting consumer behavior. And look, everybody has a job. So this is not particularly surprising to me.
Futures up 2 and the 10-year yield still not up a beat, but a shift from red on the screen, lower rates, to green on the screen, higher rates as well. Matt, I got to rip up the script here. Vinny mentioned the refunding and the discussion of a 50-year piece. You are a student of Asia. You're a student of Japan. You're a student of people that look at society with a longer duration. Why is the United States of America financially afraid of long-duration paper?
Yeah, it's not clear to me that they're afraid. I mean, they're certainly looking at it.
Oh, come on, we fought a 50-year piece for years.
Well, I think the issue is that Treasury wants to make sure that when they issue a new product, that it's going to be issued for a very long time with a very consistent level of demand.
Fair.
I think that's one of the reasons they've been apprehensive about issuing longer dated securities. They're studying it. I think it's certainly a possibility. They've made it pretty clear in this refunding statement that they're looking at a range of options.
I like the idea, John, that this idea is not taken as a one-off.
Every market is different, and the United States has much shorter duration than, say, the United Kingdom, much longer duration in the gilts market. What is it about those domestic markets that are so different that means the DMO of the UK, the Debt Management Office, can issue such a longer average maturity versus the Treasury in the United States?
Well, I mean, I think the large factor here is that U.S. pension funds and life insurance companies aren't mandated to match their assets and liabilities, right? This is something that has been slowly taking place in Japan over many years, as a good example, but there's no mandate, right? They don't have to defease all of their liabilities by buying the exact duration asset.
And that's absolutely fair. John, continue, please.
I thought you were going to follow up.
Oh, no, I'll follow up right now. I mean, Peter Fisher has been eloquent on this, one of our best and brightest, linking the financial markets into what we do in Washington. Wouldn't there be a demand for a 50-year piece?
There definitely is demand out there. I'd say the conversations I have with investors suggest to me that about half of the demand would show up in the very long end, the 50-year, and about half of the investors I speak with are asking for a 20-year. I think the issue is, why do investors want either, right? What is really driving the demand for the 20 versus driving demand?
Well, what is it? Is it matching liabilities?
Well, for the 50-year demand, yes, absolutely. There's long-dated liabilities out there. It's a great bond to match. There's a lot of convexity in that bond.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The issue with the 20-year sector is that a lot of the life insurance community wants to buy 20-year maturity corporate bonds.
Right.
Not necessarily 20-year treasury bonds.
They'd like some Apple, some 30-year Apple.
Is he with us for the next hour?
No, Matt Hornbeck's with me for the next hour.
Oh, he'll be joining you on your television program?
I'm going to take him over to the TV studio shortly.
Very cool. Very quickly here, Morgan Stanley's had a wonderful call on slower economic growth, the yields coming down. Have you made any kind of shift in that call recently? You and Alan Zentner linked together. Has there been a shift in the view into 2020?
No, actually, I mean, our view is pretty consistent with where we've had the economy trending this year, just about potential growth, 2%. That's where we are. And unfortunately, it's not particularly exciting, but it's also avoiding the worst case scenario, which is a recession. We're not seeing a recession in the U.S. next year. We're seeing the economy grow at potential. And by the way, it's an election year. You know, typically the economy is not going to do anything crazy. In an election year, there's a lot of uncertainty. Businesses aren't going to make big moves in an election year.
Matt Hornbeck, been great to have him with us. He's going to stick with us. Matt Hornbeck of Morgan Stanley,
very good.
heading up rate strategy. Yes. Joining us after US GDP comes in a bit hotter than expected. US consumer spending doing a lot of the heavy lifting here, Tom.
Yeah, and inflation numbers coming in tepid, which meant nominal GDP nicely under 4%, which will be part of the mix today. In the press conference. Don't forget our coverage, 2 p.m. across all of Bloomberg Media with really smart guests. We've tried to put together a great team to make it smarter. This is Bloomberg. Good morning.
And now for the news from New York City, here is Michael Barr.
Jonathan, Tom, thank you very much. The conversation between President Trump and his Ukrainian counterpart, that is at the heart of the impeachment inquiry, is being debated again with an accusation the White House left out parts in its transcript. Yesterday, an Army officer who serves on Trump's National Security Council told investigators he twice raised concerns over the push to have Ukraine investigate Joe Biden. More testimony will be delivered today. When it comes to efforts to undermine American elections via computer next year, it's not just Russia anymore. U.S. officials say they are keeping an eye on China and Iran, as well as Russia, after U.S. intelligence agencies reported those countries ran influence operations targeting last year's midterms. Returning to Chicago, former President Barack Obama spoke at the third annual Obama Foundation Summit. He addressed the 2020 presidential candidates' new calls for economic equality.
Advocates on behalf of social justice cannot ignore economic justice.
Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Tom.
Michael Barr, thanks so much. Time now for the Bloomberg NBC Sports Report. Here's John Stashauer.
Tom, third time in the last 4 years, there'll be a World Series Game 7. The Astros will try to win a Game 7 in Houston for the second time in 3 years. Their home record before this series began was 65-22, and yet in this series, 0-3. Home teams are 0-6, unprecedented in MLB, or for that matter, NBA and NHL history. Washington won Game 6 last night, 7-2. Steven Strasburg, again, superb, 2 outs shy of a complete game, allowed only 5 hits to go to 5-0 in the postseason. And Anthony Rendon had 3 hits, 5 RBIs, and was asked why road teams are 6-0.
We don't know, but we're going to continue to try to ride this wave as long as possible. Maybe they enjoy our park, and maybe we enjoy their park. So we're not going to ask questions. We're just going to try to go out there and just have some fun.
The game last night had controversy with the score still close, 3-2 in the 7th. Looked like the Nats would have runners at second and third, nobody out after an error, but Trey Turner ruled out at first for running inside the line. There was a long delay, even though the play was not reviewable, and Nats manager Davey Martinez, who argued during the inning, argued even more after the inning, had to be restrained by his coaches. Martinez got ejected. He'll have Max Scherzer on the mound tonight. He has recovered from that neck injury that forced him from his Game 5 start. Zach Greinke goes for Houston, and in 4 starts this postseason, he's 0-2 with a 5 ERA. NFL trade deadline came and went. The Jets reportedly talked to the Cowboys about trading safety Jamal Adams to Dallas, though it didn't happen. Adams tweeted his displeasure that it might have happened. The Rangers last night, a 4-1 win over Tampa Bay. With a Bloomberg NBC Sports Update, I'm John Stashauer. Tom?
John, thanks so much. Look how we're writing up. We've got a great team, folks. This is on the Bloomberg terminal. They write up the minutia of the voluminous GDP report. And look how has got a great set of wisdom here. It's the second consecutive quarter that American consumption has contributed more than all of the quarterly GDP growth. That's how important that American consumer is right now. That takes us back 3.5 years when we last saw that. A buoyant American consumer. Futures up 1. It's got that Fed feel to it. The VIX 13.24. We're with Matt Hornbach, Morgan Stanley. This is Bloomberg.
Imagine being denied an apartment because of your religion, or your race, or because you have children, or a disability.
It's so wrong.
Yes, but who has the power to stop this?
You do. Each of us has the power. The law is on your side. It's illegal for landlords to discriminate because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you suspect that you have experienced housing discrimination, file a complaint with HUD immediately so we can investigate it. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
To learn more, visit HUD.gov/fairhousing. That's HUD.gov/fairhousing. Or call 1-800-669-9777. 1-800-669-9777. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's environment of market volatility, Pershing's Prime Services is well positioned to support the needs of hedge funds and other alternative investment managers. Whether it's customized financing or securities lending solutions, platform access, or business expansion, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and agile enough to meet your evolving demands. Pershing helps to solve the needs of clients by advocating for them, providing unwavering strength, deep supply, and award-winning service that is at the core of everything we do. Find out what sets Pershing's prime brokerage team apart.
Learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers offered by BNY Mellon's Pershing. Visit our website at Pershing.com. Pershing LLC, member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC. This is your Bloomberg.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Hi, I'm back. I just set a personal best on my park run. Feels great.
That's lovely.